When the Korean War broke out in June of 1950, Belgium was in the midst of a political crisis known as the Royal Question about whether or not King Leopold III should be able to return to the throne after his actions in German-occupied Belgium in the Second World War. But it also created a wider confrontation between the left-leaning groups that opposed the king's return and conservatives who supported him. At the same time, the Belgians had little ties in Asia and operated a system of national service with sizable commitments as part of their occupation in West Germany. Meanwhile, Joseph Follien, who was a First World War veteran and now the Prime Minister of Belgium, was opposed to the rise of communism abroad and wished to gain national support from the United States. Therefore, both Belgium and Luxembourg decided to raise a volunteer-only formation to serve under the UN command in the defense of South Korea. Additionally, Belgian Minister of Defense Henri Moreau de Melun, who had previously been a Belgian POW in World War II, resigned his government position and enlisted to serve in the Volunteer Corps in Korea, where he would serve with distinction. With the formation of the Belgian United Nations Command, or BUNC, 2,000 men volunteered and initially only 700 were selected for training at Leopoldsburg. After their training, the volunteers received their characteristic brown berets. Soldiers from Luxembourg were also trained alongside the Belgians and were organized into 1st Platoon A Company of the BUNSC. The Corps would arrive in Pusan on January 31, 1951, and upon their arrival in Korea, some South Korean troops were made part of the Belgian contingent in order to bring the regiment up to a correct battalion strength, which is something that the American and Commonwealth forces had already been doing to increase cooperation with the South Korean military and replenish numbers. The structure of the Belgian Volunteer Corps was an infantry battalion with men from Belgium and Luxembourg with allegiance to the United Nations. However, the unit would be part of the 29th Commonwealth Brigade, 1st U.S. Cavalry Division, and the 3rd U.S. Infantry Division over the course of the Korean War. The Belgian-Luxembourg Corps served at 3 major key battles of the Korean War, being the Battle of the Imjin River, the Battle of Haktang-ni in 1951, and the Battle of Choktol in 1953. Furthermore, the Corps took part in 2 major operational advances against the Communist forces and organized an orderly withdrawal of the Kansas Line during the 1951 Chinese Spring Offensive. In April of 1951, the Belgians fought in the Battle of the Imjin River, where a battalion held a key pass alongside the British Gloucestershire Regiment. During the battle, the Belgians held their ground against vastly superior Chinese forces and inflicted mass Chinese casualties while only losing 12 men. For actions at the Imjin River, the Belgians received a U.S. Distinguished Unit Citation and the Korean Presidential Unit Citation. During the battle, Albert Krehe, commander of the unit, was wounded by a Chinese phosphorus shell and was evacuated to a hospital in Japan. During the Chinese Spring Offensive, the Belgian and Luxembourgish troops covered the flanks of the retreat for UN forces with support from American tanks before withdrawing to the Kansas Line from April 22nd to the 23rd under heavy Chinese attack. In the unit's Distinguished Unit Citation from the United States, General James Van Fleet stated that the Belgian battalion with Luxembourgish detachment of the UN forces in Korea is mentioned for exceptional execution of its missions and for its remarkable heroism in actions against the enemy on the Imjin River near Hangtang, Korea during the period from the 20th till the 26th of April 1951. The Belgian battalion with the Luxembourg detachment was one of the smallest units of the UNO in Korea, had inflicted 30-fold losses on the enemy compared to its own, due to its aggressive and courageous actions against Communist Chinese. During this period, considerable enemy forces supported by fire by machine guns, mortar, and artillery repeatedly and heavily attacked the positions held by the battalion, but the Belgians and Luxembourgish troops have continuously and bravely repulsed these fanatic attacks by inflicting heavy losses on the enemy forces. Operation Commando from October 3rd to the 12th saw the Belgians operate under American command and seize the Jamestown Line, destroying elements of the Chinese 42nd, 47th, 64th, and 65th Armies. During the Battle of Haktang-ni from October 9th to the 13th, sometimes referred to as the Battle of Arrow Hill, the Belgian and Luxembourgish troops were under strength, only having 560 men instead of their usual 900 due to troop rotations. Additionally, they were up against the entire 141st Chinese Division. The Chinese attacks would barrage the Belgians with artillery and even overrun some positions, but the Belgians would hold the Chinese back, losing 10 men and killing over 100 Chinese in the battle. Operation Pole Charge saw the U.S. and Belgian troops take several heavily defended hills held by the Chinese from October 15th to the 19th. Furthermore, Operation Pole Charge saw the Jamestown line secure, as well as the elimination of the threat posed by the PVA to the UN supply lines to Seoul. The conclusion of Operations Commando and Pole Charge also marked the beginning of the static phase of the Korean War, as well as the resumption of armistice negotiations. During the Battle of Chatkal from February 26th to April 21st, 1953, the Belgians had a defensive arc against the Chinese for 55 consecutive nights under very heavy Chinese attack. The Belgian and Luxembourgish outposts were only defended by 3 to about 10 men against Chinese wave attacks, and although 2 outposts would be overrun, they would be retaken by troops from the battalion. During the battle, Luxembourgish Corporal Raymond Beringer single-handedly prevented his bunker from falling with his .30 caliber machine gun and was awarded the American Bronze Star and recommended for the Silver Star. During battles around the Iron Triangle, where the Belgians saw fierce fighting against the Chinese and North Koreans, Padre van der Goten witnessed the exhausted Belgian troops and copied the motto of the American 15th Infantry Regiment, being "Can Do," whom the Belgians were serving with at the time to try to raise morale. Belgians Can Do Too was then the slogan written across his windshield of his Jeep, and the phrase was made famous in Belgium and is thought to summarize the spirit and courage of the Belgian contingent during the Korean War. After the 1953 ceasefire, it was seen as unnecessary to keep the BUNC at the same strength that it had been during the war, and their numbers were reduced to 200 men on December 30th, 1954. But, like other UN contingents, the Volunteer Corps was viewed as necessary to maintain a presence in Korea during the uncertain peace following the negotiations at Panmunjom on the North and South Korean border, and the last members of the unit finally left Korea on June 15, 1955. Of the 3,171 Belgians and 78 Luxembourgish soldiers in the battalion, 101 Belgians and 2 Luxembourgish soldiers, as well as 9 South Korean soldiers attached to the contingent, would be killed in action during the Korean War. 478 Belgians and 17 Luxembourgish troops were wounded in action, and 5 Belgians are still posted as missing in action as of 2024. Additionally, 2 soldiers would die in North Korean POW camps, which were notoriously brutal, as you can imagine. Although the unit was completely demobilized, the Belgian 3rd Parachute Battalion, established in 1950, carries on the traditions, flags, and badges of the Belgian Volunteer Corps, as well as the Belgian United Nations Command, to keep their history alive. Did you know about the Belgian and Luxembourgish Volunteer Corps in Korea before this video? Is there anything that I left out or should have emphasized more on? Write in the comments, and thank you for watching.